We were already talking about it before recording, but just like my YouTube recommendeds are gonna be messed up for months after this episode. But I'm kind of into it, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to hop into the topic immediately, but I think you guys have changed my brain chemistry with this topic.
I'm so glad.
I mean, I feel like that's usually what happens. If you watch at least one episode, your brain will immediately be altered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll go about it this way, because I also let's talk about something else that's brain rotting before we talk about the subject of this episode, which is the fact that Meatloaf was a guest in one of the episodes.
Meatloaf and Barry Bostwick.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that got me. There's two things that I know Meatloaf from, and that is Rocky Horror Picture Show and Bat Out of Hell. And so I listened to Bat Out of Hell again, and I just think about the Supernatural edit, which I haven't even seen Supernatural. But do you know the Bat Out of Hell edit?
I know so many Supernatural edits, but I don't think that's one of them, unfortunately.
It is. This is how I know it's a great edit, is because it has given me thoughts and feelings about a show that I've barely watched.
Yeah.
And also it is my favorite, it's crazy that it's like there's this piece of fan work that I'm like, this is one of the best pieces of fan work of all time. No, it is not of a piece of media that I have even deeply connected to at all. But the thesis of it is about how the audience's interpretations of the stories is as meaningful as the text itself, the subtext and the paratext is as important as the actual text of the show, using Supernatural's themes of angels and fate and destiny to be directly addressing the conversation between showrunners and fans. And then there's amazing Meatloaf behind vocals behind it, because Bat Out of Hell is an amazing song.
Real.
I feel like maybe we talked about that in our Supernatural episode, but I'm thinking about it once again. And in a way, we've kind of come back around to talking about shows, insane shows.
Yeah.
Before we introduce what show we're talking about, let me introduce our guest. We have the wonderful B. Alexander with us today.
Hi.
You want to tell us, the audience, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I do some things. I write games sometimes, but mostly I am really loud on Twitter. And I like to watch questionable television.
And I invited you on because we were going to talk about Glee, which is the topic of today. And then I saw you talking about how you're like, I should get back into watching Glee. And I was like, as a joke, I don't know if you were joking or honest.
I was kind of joking. Every few months, I'll be like, what if I got really into Glee again? And I'll be like, I can't. I absolutely can't.
I guess with this episode, we forced your hand.
Yeah.
We are talking about Glee. Fabiola, why did we pick Glee?
It's a wonderful show. And not much of a show person, but this is one of the few shows I've watched all the way through. And I would say it kind of shaped my sense of humor.
Yeah. So, okay. Did you watch Glee when it was coming out? Airing?
No. I watched it maybe right after the last season came out, which was 2015.
So where did you watch it in 2015? Was it
on Netflix? It was on Netflix.
So it was streaming already. That's very cool. Yes. So Glee. Ryan Murphy's Glee. It was a Fox show from, actually, wait, when was
You're the
it?
one with
2009
researching
to
I know.
2016
today.
I brought
Saffron took over research duties for this episode.
Well, I did a lot of research on Ryan Murphy, and unfortunately, I'm very bad at dates. So thank you for knowing the dates when I don't. Yeah. So okay, just a little before this episode, my conception of Ryan Murphy was guy who has so many shows.
Not
and...
incorrect. He
Yeah,
does have
he
so
has a
many
lot.
shows. He has 3 in production right now.
He also produces a lot of shows that have a lot of seasons, and so like it feels like there's so much of his content is out there. And I also know he is gay. He is like one of kind of the mainstream gay showrunners, though in doing research about him, turns out there's actually a lot of gay showrunners. They're all white men, though. The famous ones, Ryan Murphy included. And I found an excellent piece that, well, it was the introduction of an entire book called Ryan Murphy's Queer America. And I was not able to read the whole book because that would have been $60. But libraries are amazing, and I could read the introduction for free online. If you don't use your public library, oh my God, use your public library. But so I found out Glee was his 3rd show, and the first one that actually like went somewhere. He apparently had his first show was called Popular, and it's like it was such a flop that he like refuses to acknowledge it. But it sounds amazing. It sounds apparently it was like Glee, and that it was a high school melodrama, but without like the Glee Club musical theater aspects. And that's kind of, I think, what skyrocketed Glee into its fame is there aren't really shows like it.
No.
There haven't really been shows like it.
No,
since.
there's only one Glee.
Yeah, which
but I feel
is
like,
probably a good thing.
I feel like a close comparison would be Ryan Murphy's previous show, Nip Tuck.
Yeah,
because I have a Twitter mutual who's currently watching Nip Tuck, and she like keeps making updates of, okay, here's this crazy thing that happened this episode, and here's this other crazy thing, and there's another crazy thing. And so I'm like, yeah, this feels like Glee, but it's about plastic surgery.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to read this quote that I found from the introduction, which is kind of a way to get us into talking about Glee and how it relates to camp, which is, even as his increasing influence as a mainstream media brand potentially threatens to make him indistinguishable from the normative strictures he often defies, Murphy simultaneously pushes the boundaries of where the normative lies. His work seethes with queer potentiality. This doesn't mean, however, that either Murphy or the television shows and movies he writes, directs, and or produces have escaped criticism, nor should they. If we are using queer in the sense of challenging normative practices and ideals in terms of sexuality and identity, but also just queerness, you can't deny that his shows are that. I mean, he's doing
Yeah.
But they also, to acknowledge up front, Glee has a character who uses a wheelchair, played by an able-bodied person, and also like has lots of criticism that it's faced in its tokenization of characters. Say that, get that out of the way. Now let's talk about just the insane stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it was very clearly made in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, there's this other quote that or actually another thing that I found really interesting. This is just like Ryan Murphy's Glee is one of his first work, but like the introduction talked about how Ryan Murphy often uses like the same actors over and over again, and especially like older female actors like Jessica Lange. Is that how do you say it? Yeah.
Glying. Yeah.
And they talked about how that is like a form of diva worship, which I think was a really interesting point. But mainly the introduction kind of introduced this idea of Murphy's show being queer Baroque, because apparently Ryan Murphy hates the word camp. He prefers the term Baroque, which he said in an interview actually with Emily Nussbaum, whatever her say last name, prolific television critic and writer for the New Yorker. But so Ryan Murphy is now the second showrunner of a show that we are labeling camp, who hates the word camp, after Joss Whedon. But yeah, Ryan Murphy prefers Baroque because he thinks it represents bigness, and that's what he likes to describe his shows as. And he also, the direct quote from him is that Baroque is a maximalistic approach to storytelling that I've always liked. Baroque is a choice, and everything I do is an absolute choice.
That's also camp.
Yeah, that feels like a definition of camp.
Yeah. I think he just doesn't like camp because it's associated with like a kind of like gay culture that he doesn't just want to be the gay showrunner. But lots of stuff are camp. Glee is camp. Okay, let's
I also feel like it's important to note that Saffron is the only one here who hasn't seen Glee.
Oh yeah. I'm rambling about introductions and reading because that is the support that I've given myself, because I have not experienced Glee like naturally. I don't know.
In its natural habitat, you haven't experienced Glee.
Glee has always been like something shown to me, literally, for as long as I can remember. This is a memory. I don't know if I've told this story on Camp Pod before, but I have a very distinct memory from like being in lower school and my parents showing my sister and I the Bohemian Rhapsody birth scene, and they like showed it to us like, oh, I think you guys would really like this. At the time, I had this like association in my brain for the longest time that they thought this was like high art. They're like, isn't this TV so cool?
I mean, Glee has Golden Globes and Emmys and also probably SAG Awards. Like, this was prestige comedy.
I just remember, like, I think they showed it to us because we like Bohemian Rhapsody and they would play Queen for us. I was just so focused on this screaming teenager.
On the birth.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? This is kind of traumatic.
But that's a lot of Glee. This is kind of traumatic, but it's also the funniest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll give the floor to you guys. How did you discover Glee? How did you discover, like, what are your favorite episodes? Like, what are your favorite characters? What are your thoughts, impressions initially just on Glee? Because mine is, oh my god, I'm overwhelmed.
I didn't like fully experience Glee until like spring 2021, because I was just like, I think it wasn't like freshly put on Netflix, but it kept getting put in my recommendations on Netflix, and I was like, I guess I have to watch it. And then I watched.
Had you seen anything of it before then, or?
Yeah, I had seen like 2 or 3 episodes by chance when they were coming out, completely out of context. Like, I saw the I don't remember what episode it's in, but it's the sex worker that Rachel dates in one of the later seasons singing Heartbreaker 101. And I saw that episode completely removed from context, and I was like in elementary school, but I hadn't like heard. It's not that I hadn't heard anything about Glee, obviously. It's such a big moment, but I hadn't like seen people like sincerely talking about it. It was always a thing that was like, isn't this show so crazy? Wasn't this such a weird moment in time?
Yeah. Do you still feel that way when you watched it, or did you start to take it seriously?
I started to take it seriously like absurdly quickly. I got so invested. Like, I think truly by like mid-season 1, But I also watched it over the course of like maybe a month and a half. So
Wow.
I was speed running, both getting invested and just watching it in general.
What about you, Fabiola?
So I distinctly remember watching bits and pieces of the first Britney episode and the grilled cheeses episode when they aired because my mom was like randomly watching them, but she was also like, "Oh, you're a bit too young for this yet." But then when I was like 15, we decided to like watch the whole thing together. Yeah, that's basically it. And my my brain chemistry has been altered since I was like 15.
So, okay, what has my, unglee pilled self, how would you, why do you love it? Pitch it to me. What do you love?
It's just so much. And I also love musicals, and I also specifically love the sense of humor in the show where they just throw around words and oftentimes you're like not entirely sure if something's supposed to be funny. Because I feel like one of my main problems with comedy television is how a lot of the jokes are very clearly jokes and I just want to look for the joke. I like it when it's a bit confusing. And I feel like that's kind of what has led me to camp, because that's kind of how camp operates. You have to look for the joke, basically.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like season 1 especially was like so lightning in a bottle in terms of like that couldn't happen again. A lot of people throw around like, oh, they should do a Glee reboot. Wouldn't it be so funny if they did a Glee reboot? It couldn't happen. It's not just that like it was, I mean, it was a different time, but I'm not saying that in like oh, they got away with saying more offensive shit. It was just like it was such a different moment like in culture. It wouldn't, the MySpace thing in the pilot wouldn't be funny if it was just like Rachel Berry's on TikTok, you know?
Yeah.
Like it can't be recreated.
Yeah, it's funny because it's MySpace and Quinn is using this giant clunky laptop
Yeah.
to
And they're
post
all
mean
cackling like
comments.
they're in a PSA.
That's definitely something I felt like I was experiencing like when watching it, where everything is like everything's just the biggest it could be in the line deliveries and like the I okay, I did not go to public school. We did not have cheerleaders. But cheerleaders don't wear their cheerleaders don't wear their uniforms all the time, right?
Not constantly. I didn't go to a school that had cheerleaders until I was in 9th grade, and even then it was like only on game days. Like,
but like all of the Cheerios have to be wearing their uniforms at all time. Like they're
and
little,
they have
like,
to have the ponytail with the one curl.
Yeah.
It's so like I'm blanking on the word, but just like they're, I don't know, yeah, they're like little uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's instant character.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Sue Sylvester is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sue Sylvester, yeah.
It just like I don't think it's the performance of Jane Lynch's lifetime. I'm not super familiar with her body of work, but I have to assume that she's done better things than Glee. But it's the performance of my lifetime.
I mean, I think she's the strongest comedic performance on the show.
Yeah, because she takes it so seriously.
It's her and Heather Morris as Brittany.
Yeah.
Of the everything that I've seen, Brittany is my favorite character.
Brittany is so I adore her.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of my faves.
Because the thing is that you know what it is about Brittany that I love is that I feel like blonde bimbos are never played as serious. If that makes sense. Like she genuinely believes that everything she is saying all of the time, which I don't think I've ever really seen a character like that. It's like, oh, I'm a little bit ditzy and it doesn't really matter what I'm saying, but just like, especially the Britney episode that we watched, yeah. I'm like,
everything Britney says is life or death.
Yeah.
there is a burgeoning Facebook campaign that has swelled to over 5 members. The ardent demand that this week at the Fall Homecoming Assembly, the McKinley High School Glee Club perform a number by, wait for it, Ms. Britney Spears.
Spears, yeah. Sorry, Kurt, sorry, no, I don't think she's a very good role model.
But Mr. Shu, we kind of grew up with her. She's literally why I wanted to become a performer.
I don't want to do Brittany.
Why no Brittany, Brittany?
Because my name is also Britney Spears.
What?
What the hell is she talking about?
My middle name is Susan, my last name is Pierce. That makes me Brittany S. Pierce, Britney Spears. I've lived my entire life in Britney Spears' shadow. I will never be as talented or as famous. I hope you'll all respect that I want Glee Club to remain a place where I, Brittany S. Pierce, can escape the torment of Britney Spears.
Well, there you have it, guys. It's been decided. No Brittany. Sorry.
Thanks, Britt. Thanks a lot.
Leave Brittany alone.
Thank you for understanding. It's been a hard road.
Do you guys, Fabiola, do you guys want to talk about like what are the episodes that we watched, and also why these episodes do you pull out?
So we watched the pilot, the first Brittany episode that was during season 2, the Glee Rocky Horror episode that was also season 2, and the Hurt Locker Part 2 episode, which is season 6.
Mm-hmm. I realized...
Big time jump.
Yeah, I realized after I had watched everything that we discussed that I had accidentally created such a, like, seasons 1 and 2, like, bias. So that by the time you get to Hurt Locker, it's like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know what's going on.
Do you think that those are stronger seasons, though, in terms of the camp factor?
I mean, I do defend season 6. Like, it's the most over-the-top season, and it also has the better, newer cast. Because at least with the newer cast of high schoolers, the writers were at least attempting to make them a bit different from the original cast. Because the second batch of the cast, which came in on season 4, they were basically the same characters, but in different bodies.
Yeah, or like combinations of characters. Like Unique was Kurt and Mercedes.
I do
Marley
really
is
like
kind
Kitty,
of
though.
Rachel. I love Kitty.
I am a Kitty defender. I feel like more of these characters should just have been straight up evil.
Is Kitty the character who they like in the Hurt Locker episode? They're like, we need you to save the day.
Yeah.
Because
she was iconic.
Crazy.
She is literally evil. One of her plot lines was she gaslit the character Marley, who's kind of the new Rachel, into developing an eating disorder.
What?
She like consistently makes her clothes smaller so that she feels like she's getting bigger.
And she always made insane comments, and it led to the point where Marley fainted at one of the competitions.
Yeah, I think it was like during the Grease episode.
I think it might have been after.
Kitty wanted to be Sandy.
Oh
yeah.
That is the thing that I like, is that this is a musical
Kitty's
theater.
also like violently racist and transphobic.
Yeah.
Look up Kitty compilations, and everything she says is literally insane.
Yeah.
And literally evil, and I love her.
I should not have said that I liked her then, I guess.
I like her because she's like this incredibly vile teenager, and I feel like more of these characters should have been like that.
Yeah, I feel like even like early season Santana, before they decided to humanize her by making her a lesbian, was like not so evil that you couldn't like empathize with her.
The thing
but
that
Kitty's
I've
just
always
so bad.
The thing I've always heard about in terms of like characters being evil is the Rachel sending a character to quote not an active crack house.
I forgot about that.
Favorite moments. That's like a top tier Rachel moment when she sent Sunshine to a crack house.
Yeah, it's the I think it's the beginning of season 3.
I think it's season 2.
Season 2, yeah. That's where the telephone bathroom scene comes from. Have you ever seen that, where Rachel's singing at her so violently?
These high schoolers are like so ruthless.
Yeah.
I guess, and the thing is that like,
Have you seen the clip of one of the Dalton boys in season 3 throws a slushie with rocks at Blaine?
that I've seen that episode. That's one of the episodes I had seen before this podcast, because my best friend Willa was like, "Oh, I love Grant Gustin. Let's watch this episode of Glee together because he's
Let's watch
in
this
it."
episode of Glee together where he blinds Blaine.
And okay, also, what is the show's thing with like throwing slushies? Is this a reoccurring bit? Because it's in
Yes,
the pilot
it is
too.
a reoccurring bit. It was in the posters for the characters.
Yeah, I remember those posters. Is this a thing? Is this
In the
No.
show, apparently.
In the show, it's a thing. In real life, no one's wasting money on slushies to to bully people.
Slushy.
You can drink that.
Yeah, this show has
lot
so
of-
many moments.
A
that's
lot of the
just-
camp of this show is just the crazy plot line camp.
Yeah.
Because, like, a lot of the plot lines, or at least ideas, are pretty normal for, like, teen melodramas, but the way in which Glee executes them is, what is the craziest way that this could happen?
Well, like, yeah, like teen pregnancy, that makes sense. But then to have, I was rewatching the Bohemian Rhapsody birth scene, which is such an insane string of words. To me, all of the camp comes from the editing. This is like, here goes film Saffron. I've always been thinking I've been thinking a lot about editing.
Do you know the
recently,
plot
but,
line of the pregnancy?
okay, one of the clips you sent me, or like maybe it was the Miss Mojo video or something, was okay because Quinn is supposed to be a virgin, but then she cheats on her boyfriend and then lies to him and says that he got her pregnant.
So Quinn is at the beginning of the show dating Finn. Finn and Quinn don't have sex because Quinn is like the leader of the Virgin Club or whatever. And she cheats on Finn with his best friend Puck and lies that says that Finn got her pregnant because they were in a hot tub together, and the temperature of a hot tub is the perfect temperature for sperm and it makes them swim faster.
Okay.
And then so Terry, Will Schuster's wife, is like, "Babe, I'm pregnant, you have to quit your job." He doesn't end up quitting his job. I
know she's faking that pregnancy, right?
She's faking the pregnancy. She wasn't initially faking it. She like was having like psychosomatic symptoms because she just wanted to be pregnant really bad. And she was like, "Well, I can't like go back. I can't be like, whoops, I'm actually not pregnant because then Will's gonna be so mad at me." So she fakes her pregnancy and then wants to adopt Quinn's baby so that like, oh, coincidentally, this baby will be taken off of your hands, and then also I'll have a baby that is also probably blonde. And it just works out, but then doesn't work out because it'd be crazy if it did.
So wait, Will's wife knows that his student is pregnant before he does?
No, everyone knows that Quinn is pregnant, but it's just that Quinn is like, obviously I'm not going to keep the baby because I'm a teenager and I have to finish high school. So it would have been like, oh, I'm going to give up my baby to some nebulous adoption agency, but really Terry comes in and takes the baby. I don't know. The logic is not great, but that's kind of the point.
And also with like the Brittany episode, you'd think that they would just sing Britney songs, but the way that they have the characters perform Britney songs is that they have John Stamos play a dentist and everyone goes under anesthesia and while on anesthesia they hallucinate Britney fantasies.
That is the thing, is that like it is the next step of heightened reality where I can go, okay, like musical theater as a concept is camp kind of in of itself, because you have to kind of suspend your disbelief, have this razzle dazzle spectacle. But then to get there, they don't try to like justify it in some subversion of camp. They like make it more extreme the way that they are having this musical theater experience. I don't know. My one critique watching, especially like watching like the Brittany episodes, well, not my main critique, because there's lots of critique about Glee, but what I was like struck by was that when they're doing their actual Glee performances, they're just kind of singing, and like then they're like do some choreography, but they don't like, there's not even a big, it's not even as like extreme a show when they're actually doing their performances. It's all the like, it's all of the when the kids are just singing their own songs that have like this kind of big presentation to them, it seems.
Yeah, I also feel like it depends on the episode and the number, because most of the dancing and set design just gets more extreme as the show progresses. And that was just season 2, early season 2.
Well, okay, I've seen the What Does the Fox Say clip. Is that, are they actually going to the auditorium to sing that, and like they've set up a stage in costumes, or does that just happen?
Incredibly unclear. Because it's
the answer is yes.
They do it in the auditorium, but then also states away in New York, Kurt, Rachel, Santana, and Adam Lambert are singing What Does the Fox Say with puppets. And it's just like so disconnected from the puppet stuff in the episode. And also, I was gonna say, and from the What Does the Fox Say stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It was just popular at the time.
Yeah, one of my favorite numbers that I somehow haven't sent you is one in season 6 where they perform Take On Me, and like entire sections of it are illustrated like in the music video.
Oh, yeah.
It looks
That's
really cool.
That is one thing that I've kept thinking while watching the show is, dear God, did they must have a budget.
Like a crazy budget too. Like
they got actual Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they got Meatloaf.
So. Yeah. I mean, I guess because it was Fox, it was network, and it was doing well.
Mm-hmm.
But
they eventually get Demi Lovato in season 5.
Is she as a character?
Yes.
Yeah. She was in the band with Adam Lambert. And
wait, but like, is she playing an original character, or is she playing
an original character?
Okay. Yes. I was like, is Demi Lovato just in the Glee universe?
I feel like at some point they did a Demi Lovato song and then they just never addressed it. I feel like that had to have happened, because they also, sorry, this is not at all on topic. Wicked exists in the universe, and Idina Menzel plays Rachel's biological mother. So how does that work? What's up with that?
Oh, and I was watching a video essay earlier.
It's just clones.
And in one moment they noticed that on a TV in one of the scenes, it's showing the end credits of Glee. So they were like, does Glee exist in Glee?
Oh, it's really funny.
What? Okay, we talked a bit earlier about like instant characters. Who are just your guys' favorite characters?
I really love Mercedes and Sam.
Both
individually, but also like as a ship. They're really everything to me. But I love Santana a lot also.
Yeah.
She's my girly.
Absolutely. I'm really partial to Brittany. She raised me. Santana is also great. The older I get, the more I love Sam.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, he's just a little guy.
He's just really a guy.
Like Blaine.
Yeah. Sam's just a guy, and everyone was like, look at this freak with the big lips.
What? I don't. He has normal lips.
He has
right?
normal. His lips are so normal. They're like maybe a little big for like a white person, but I don't even think that's the case. And Santana sings a song where she calls him Trouty Mouth.
Wait, a full song?
Yes, a full entire song.
Well, I mean, she gets cut off in the show, but I do think the full song exists like on streaming.
One of my favorite Glee writing tendencies that I feel is very camp is how, even though much of the show is very like an tolerance, acceptance, early 2010s kind of thing, it also just loves to make fun of people's appearances.
Yeah, there's the whole oh god, I don't remember what season it's from, but there's Santana like absolutely ripping into Kurt.
Oh, that was season 6.
Yeah, calling him a more feminine Quinn Fabray.
Yeah, it is really interesting that this is a show that it's like, we're gonna have representation, and it's, these characters are gonna be more than their identities.
We're all minorities, we're in the Glee club.
But yeah, I mean, they don't like, it is so like, it feels so strange. There's such a disconnect to be like, we are gonna be have themes of tolerance, and the cast will do anti-bullying campaigns, and there is so much meanness in the actual show.
Yeah, like every character is deranged on some level. Like, they're all clearly adults, but it's also very funny to see them act like teenagers and wear these like very teenage clothes.
Yeah, they're sophomores in the pilot, which gets crazier the more I think about it.
I cannot think of a show though that is as like, just the characters are just mean to each other.
And I love it. I wish they were worse to each other.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like Glee really had the potential to be like a teenage It's Always Sunny or Succession even.
That's the thing. I think that's another, like, to put Glee
and amongst favorite characters, I forgot to say Becky. I also love Becky.
I love Becky.
I was gonna say, to put Glee in comparison to like It's Always Sunny or Succession, I think the thing that's so interesting though is that it's got that kind of like it can have that same kind of cruelty and grittiness, but that's not at all in the aesthetics of the show, because the show is so bright, musical theater, costumes, color, like 2000s fashion.
Yeah, the general vibe of Glee is very wholesome acceptance vibes, but the actual writing of it is just nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to parse through my notes, being like, where's like the theory to dig into? Oh, I found one thing, and I remembered one thing I wanted to bring up about the musical theater. We've talked on the show before about the like, one thing about camp is like things not being what they are. I can't remember if that's the exact phrase or
the obvious adults playing teenagers.
Yes. But another thing for me, having now done a lot of like podcast editing, I have such an ear for the like sound mixing, and anytime they do a musical performance, it's crisp, it's clear, it's so dubbed. You so clearly, like, they've done this in like a studio and then they're playing it over the scene, and to me that is camp, to like listen to this audio that does not sound like a live performance while these dancers are singing and moving around and doing choreography. Like it's almost like I keep wanting to like compare it to the Riverdale musical episodes, because that's kind of a similar like aesthetic or like visuals, and also like actor, old adults playing teenagers, but it's not there. It's just, there's a certain kind of Glee sound.
Yeah,
I feel like it's mostly the cast of Glee is they're like actually trained singers.
Yeah, but it's also like, I feel like if you are into Glee enough to think about the sound of Glee, you are familiar with musical theater and you know that musical theater can't sound like that.
Yeah. There's also like, for me, Glee is also the kind of the thing that introduced me to like the like mashup and that style of like combining songs, which I think, you know, I mean, Pitch Perfect then also does the same thing and like that kind of having riff-offs and a cappella mashups and stuff. But Glee is kind of the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of like mashups, and also like the camp of putting things next to each other. Like one of the, you know, crazy scenes I've always see referenced is the Let's Have a Kiki and the Turkey Lurkey song.
Yeah. I'm also thinking of all, like the specific songs themselves, the super bass and I Still Believe mashup with Sue dressed up as Nicki Minaj.
Wait, that's the other song that's mashed up in that moment?
It's like a diva off between Blaine and Sue for some reason. I don't remember what the reason is. It could be anything, truly. Yeah. And that's where the Sue standing up to the beginning of Super Bass meme comes from.
Just give me one more try in love again. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked before about the camp of memes and like media that produces memes, and this show has so many memes.
Especially in like the first like 5 episodes. Like the first time I was watching season 1, it felt crazy because every like 20 seconds I was like, I've seen that before.
I'm going to create an environment that is so toxic.
Exactly.
That's basically the entire plot of Glee. I'm going to create an environment that is so toxic.
Well, there's also that one that's like the you haven't heard of Josh Groban, Kill Yourself?
Yes.
Isn't that?
Yeah. That's in like the first like 5 to 7 episodes.
Is that said by the fired band or director?
He's not back in the faculty, but he's in like they create like a men's a cappella group with it's Shu, that guy, I believe the football coach, and then Puck and Finn. And they do men's
Also,
a cappella.
What is with Glee and like it's the Glee and the inappropriate relationships between children and faculty / teachers?
It's every single episode. And I don't understand why people are like, hey, at least Sue calls them out on it. Like, Sue's best friend is also a teenager.
Yeah.
It's Becky.
Sue calls Becky her best friend, like in the canon.
In Becky, she's just has like hangs out with Becky all the time and just like
Becky doesn't go to school, she's just in the school.
Also, I mean, I'm sure other people have said this before, but in that pilot, I was like, Mr. Shu, you have the worst Spanish accent I've ever heard.
Yes,
it does come up later in the
There's
series.
an entire episode about how Shu is a bad Spanish teacher.
But then at the end of it, they're like, it's okay that you're a bad Spanish teacher because we like you.
You're all minorities. You're in the Glee club.
And there's also the episodes where Gwyneth Paltrow is a substitute teacher, and she sometimes substitutes Spanish. And one of the Spanish lessons is basically her asking in Spanish, how many times has Lindsay Lohan gone to rehab? 5 times. And she says all that in Spanish. And that's how she teaches the class.
That I wonder if that connection comes from the fact that so Ryan Murphy has a collaborator who's produced a bunch of shows with him and doesn't get named often.
Brad Falchuk.
He's married to Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yep.
Gwyneth Paltrow, she's got to be a camp icon too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me also of the thing, this like idea that we talked way back in like our first episode of like what is camp, is in like the relationship between like Donald Trump and camp is the idea of like this kind of like, I was thinking a lot about it watching Glee, the relationship between like enjoying something and finding it funny and calling it camp while also being like grappling with like the complexity of enjoying it at the same time.
Like, yeah, that's basically the experience of watching Glee and like also watching specific characters.
Yeah.
I feel like a clear example of like a camp character in Glee is Rachel. Because, and also like in a meta-narrative sense in relation to Leah Michelle, because there's this weird vibe of like, where does Leah Michelle end and Rachel begin? And a lot of times they're like the exact same person, and continually like Rachel is such a favorited character of like the writing team, and it kind of feels like a form of diva worship on Ryan Murphy's part of like just how much is just given to Rachel.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy loves Leah Michelle and absolutely hates Diana Agron. It's so bad.
Yeah, there's also something in like the kind of like, I don't know, like kind of there's like a weird kind of curse or just like,
yeah, I was also gonna bring up the curses camp
of just stuff happening with Glee cast members.
Yeah. And I feel like that's very common with, like, again, diva worship and famous camp icon does, like, specifically individuals. But yeah, like, it's the combination of, like, this morbid, quote-unquote, curse and, like, the various things that have happened to this cast while also being, like, Glee, they're singing and dancing.
Yeah. In the interview with Ryan Murphy that I read, he kind of explained kind of or in when this kind of as quote the scandal sheet stories that shadowed the young cast, when that was brought up to him, he said quote, "It's sad, but it's also Hollywood," which I think is interesting. Is this idea that's like it's kind of the industry that like some people are gonna be shitty people. Like there's also just like this kind of like the tragedy of young stars dying, or you know,
it's
beloved
very
stars
old
dying.
Hollywood.
Yeah, but it definitely
it also gives credence to Glee as this kind of iconography.
Yeah,
like one of the things I was thinking about when watching the Brittany episode specifically is I was just thinking about how it's just pop culture referencing pop culture in this very ingrained way. And like it's like these two iconic things coming together for an episode, even though at the time Glee itself was probably not considered iconic, but now we do consider it iconic.
Yeah.
You're really hot.
You're sweet.
And your breath smells really good.
So does yours. And you know why? Because this is a fantasy.
Wow.
I mean, one thing, like watching the Britney episode, I was surprised but delighted that they seem to have a lot of respect for Britney Spears, actually, like, which, because there's, you know, so much tabloid gossip and you know, like so much awful stuff has followed her, that I liked that the kind of writers and like the characters, you know, in the show were like defending her and being like, no, she's awesome, like she's cool. And like the fact that then she was able to like guest appear makes me think that like, oh, like she was okay with this.
Yeah, it's like Sue being like, she's an icon, she's gone through a very rough time, but also she's going to incite sex riots.
We gotta talk about that scene, because
we have to talk about the sex
and
riot.
legendary, iconic and legendary. One of the scenes that I do vividly remember watching when the episode aired.
It is extreme sexuality and extreme reactions to sexuality,
and also an iconic instance of Will Schuester dancing with characters who are children.
Oh my God.
Yeah. an iconic instance of Will Schuester being like so strange and unusual to his students.
But okay, also the scene, like even before the sex riot scene where, they're literally just like singing and dancing and it isn't even that sexual of a performance, but just the song Toxic itself is enough to drive them crazy. Also,
like it's pretty sexual for network television, TV-14.
That's true. But also the scene before that when Rachel walks down the hallway in like the Britney Spears like schoolgirl outfit, that alone is also enough to have people like nearly fainting,
passing out. Yeah.
And I love that. I love that they're like just a visual or just a song is enough to drive people wild.
Yeah, I tweeted something similar yesterday about how it's kind of unbelievable that every week Glee presented like full-on concert experience for millions of unsuspecting Americans.
Yeah. And also like the music's good.
Yes.
Like
some of the songs I would argue are better than the originals.
Yeah. Okay, this is very mean niche confession, but there are some songs, Glee covers that I have on playlists. But the reason I have them on playlists is because there are some really good A Crown of Candy animatics that are set to Glee mashups that I've watched many times. And
so true.
Their version of Edge of Glory is amazing.
Yeah.
Mercedes and Santana doing a duet is like gold.
Yeah, I feel like there are some songs where people will be like, this Glee cover is better than the original song. Like specifically like Cough Syrup. A lot of people are like, the Blaine cover is better than the original song. It's like, is it better or do you have a stronger like emotional connection to it?
It's an iconic scene.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And it is an iconic scene. I don't want to say that the scene is good because like obviously like but
like I feel like
what is the scene
that leads me to like part of the camp of one of the camp aspects to me of Glee is how some of the episodes are like hard to watch emotionally, which contrasts to the vibe of the show.
The scene that Cough Syrup is in, it's like overlaid with a different scene, but the actual like singing is just Blaine on a stage, like not even like dancing or anything, just like singing out, is oh god, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Karofsky. Yeah, Karofsky in like the moments leading up to this is like a homophobic bully to Kurt and then to Kurt and Blaine, and then he
assaults Kurt.
He assaults Kurt. He is outed as gay, and then in the Cough Syrup scene, he attempts suicide.
Oh my god!
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And then there's the entire
Is
Finn
this
memorial episode.
The Finn, I literally can't think about it.
I cannot
it makes
watch
me
it.
So sad.
Like it's like legitimately horrific to watch.
Yeah. So is a good contemporary of Glee 13 Reasons Why?
I feel like 13 Reasons Why tried too hard to be serious. Like it's very much trying to be a serious show when Glee was never trying to be that serious.
Yeah.
Glee
like,
just
Glee's
had
actually
serious
fun
episodes.
To watch. Yeah.
Glee has a lot of serious episodes, but for the most part, it's fun and like you want to be there. But I feel like 13 Reasons Why is just like nonstop, like misery.
Yeah.
Which has its own merit. Maybe not with 13 Reasons Why specifically, but
yeah. No, that's like the thing is that I've heard. Well, I've only seen reactions to 13 Reasons Why because I'm like, this seems like a train wreck of a show that like is showing pretty harmful stuff with not a lot of thought, or like they think they're putting a thought into it. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious, what does it feel like when there is a difficult episode or like a serious episode of Glee, that it's like a shift, that it feels like there's a change in how the episodes are, or does it keep the same tone?
It definitely doesn't keep the same tone. A lot of times it's like there is a shift, but it's not like super abrupt. Like the episode will start off kind of serious. Like it won't be like, here's something really upsetting. I got you. Except for the school shooting episode, which just happens.
Yeah, like halfway through a normal Glee episode.
It's a normal Glee episode. I don't even remember what happens in the episode because it's so like inconsequential.
It's just Becky accidentally dropping a gun.
No, I remember like what happens like post the gunshots, but I like the drama of the episode pre that, like the generic like teen drama of it is just like so wiped from my brain because all I can remember when I think about it is like they're having a silly time in the choir room and then there's gunshots.
Guns don't shoot if you drop them.
Yeah. She drops it and it fires twice.
Yeah, I feel like they just did that to just avoid it being darker.
Yeah, because I guess they wanted to do like a PSA type thing without like actually killing any of their characters, like killing or hurting. But then it just like ends up being kind of like stupid, which sucks. Sometimes Glee will like try to make a statement and then they take a left turn right before they get to the actual statement. So they have like all of the like steps of making the statement, but they don't actually land it.
I don't know if it would exactly qualify as making a statement and then failing, but that reminds me of a way to segue to the talking about the Rocky Horror episode. Because that was the one episode you were like discussing ideas what to watch, and I was like, I want to watch the Rocky Horror episode because I have like, you know, I really love Rocky Horror. I've never seen it, actually been to a show. I'm hoping to check that off my list at some time, but I've watched the film and I was like really interested. It was like, how is this mainstream like network TV show going to translate like participatory cult nature of Rocky Horror? And because you can't, I don't think. There's such different experiences. And so it does seem like the episode sidesteps that by being like having some numbers that are like the Rocky Horror numbers, and then also just having the plot be about like how subversive and sexual Rocky Horror is and how big a deal it is that the Glee Club's putting it on. And the way it wrapped up bugged me so much because like
it's not good.
Will has this little like speech about how it's like Rocky Horror isn't about pushing boundaries or making audiences accept certain rebellious themes. And I'm
it is. But then he's like, it's not those things, it's people who are like outside of like society's reaches or whatever.
Yeah, he's like outcasts or
it's
something.
Like it's for the outcasts and the freaks. It's like, how is that not the same thing?
Yeah.
Those aren't two conflicting statements. You said a full sentence, but you're acting like you're bringing up two different ideas.
And it's also just like, so I'm like, God, Will Schuester is like the worst guy. Because
and I feel like the show knows it. Because I feel like a lot of the discourse surrounding the characters of Glee, and specifically Will Schuester, is that like people act like, oh, this aged poorly. And I'm like, no, a lot of the text in this show is just Will Schuester's very questionable.
Yeah.
The characters in the show will often be like, Will, what the fuck are you doing? Will, you can't be like that around your students.
It's
and
just,
I feel like as the show progresses, the characters keep pointing out the other characters' flaws more and more often. Like there are entire scenes of the later seasons that are just characters ranting at other characters about their known character flaws.
Yeah.
I do think it is, like, even though he's awful, though, it is kind of fun that, like, I don't know, they're all awful, if that makes sense. Like, the fact that, like, it makes interesting television that the adult is just as petty and jealous as his like teenage stars. And you know, even though I am like, why the fuck would you make your like teenagers put on Rocky Horror? They're all like half of them develop body image issues because they're gonna have to be naked and they're like freaked out about that. It's like, what the fuck, Will? It is also like so crazy and ridiculous that he does that just to try to win back his ex. Like, sir, you are making like how also he just walks in with a new plan every single time he does Glee Club. He's constantly changing his plans. Like, how many print music, like sheet music has been printed out and never used because he's always changing his plans. Like,
yeah, McKinley High is like the #1 producer of like paper waste. Yeah, I do think it's really funny that in Glee there's never like one solid voice of reason. Sometimes the voice of reason is Sue Sylvester, and if the voice of reason is Sue Sylvester, something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. And that also speaks to the idea that camp is like political but amoral. Like there is like, if there's a moral message that Glee is trying to tell, it so diminishes its own point with everything else it does.
Yeah, that's part of why the like anti-bullying stuff is so funny, because it's not anti-bullying.
No, every single character at some point is a menace.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Hurt Locker
I was gonna say we need to talk about the Hurt Locker episode, which so I feel like it kind of
they made Sue Sylvester Fujoshi.
I feel like it kind of encompasses so much of season 6 and just so much of how the text of Glee evolved over the years, which it just got increasingly metatextual and also increasingly maximalist. Like the plot of the episode is Sue is obsessed with Klaine, Kurt and Blaine, and she devises this saw trap and has this little jigsaw thing that looks like her kind of torment Kurt and Blaine as they are trapped in a fake elevator with a bathroom in it.
Yeah, is Sue supposed to be like a stand-in for Klaine fans in that moment?
Yes.
Yeah, there are multiple instances of characters being stand-ins for people shipping characters, or like they'll just make references to people shipping characters, like when Kitty is like, if you're gonna go Leslie for a cheerleader, the world is rooting for you and Quinn for Bray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I feel like the characters Spencer specifically feels like a commentary on previous gay characters on Glee. Like Spencer as a whole is basically devised as an alternative to Kurt and Blaine because he's like a jock and a football player, but he's gay. His entire conceit is it's kind of like a look how far we've come, kind of.
Kind of, because then he's still like, I want to be in Glee Club so bad, but I can't because if I show signs of weakness, it's over.
Yeah.
Speaking on like the metatextual nature of the final season, I do think some of the like meta references to like, or say like, when like there's the line when Sue is showing her videos of Kurt and Blaine and Becky is like, this was a dream, how did you film that? Or like, and Sue has another line about like, oh, like, we have 6 weeks, 7 if the network is kind. To me, that a little bit like ruins the camp, I guess, is because it like, I mean, maybe not the meta joke about networks, but like the how is that happening? Or like in the Brittany episode where it was like, how are we sharing the same vision? Because I'm like, I've really come to believe like, oh, camp is you let things be. You can't lampshade it, because then it's like it takes away like, I guess, the mystery of like, this is just what's happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might be, not to like psychoanalyze Ryan Murphy, but that might be part of why he doesn't like calling things camp, not only because of like the gay implications of it, but also that like he doesn't follow through with it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a reputation that he seems to have in the articles and like critics I was reading, of just this kind of like, he kind of doesn't stay on his shows that long. Like he'll do the first couple seasons and then move on to something else, and it's almost kind of like, well, why do you go just like blow it all up, you know? Like, why didn't you kind of like commit to the bit? Though they also saw that in reference to season 6 of Glee just being like the most extreme version. And Fabiola, you're saying that like, no, that is camp. You're defending it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the lampshading in season 6 kind of loops around into becoming camp again, with just how so much of Glee happens on season 6 of Glee.
It becomes like a parody of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hell?
Hello, Clean. Let's play a game. You're trapped in an elevator.
This isn't an elevator.
You're trapped in an elevator with a bathroom. If you don't find a way out, you'll be forced to eat each other and then suffocate. But you have another choice.
What?
You and Blaine must kiss. If you kiss each other, you will be allowed to leave this room.
Because I know that obviously Kurt and Blaine like are broken up, and then they get back together, and then the end there's like the double gay wedding. But like, what is Santana and like Brittany's arc like?
They are like secretly hooking up for a while because Santana doesn't want to admit that she's a lesbian, and Brittany's like, I'm having a ball on this bitch. And then Santana comes out, they briefly date publicly, they break up.
First they out Santana.
They out Santana, and then
she's
she comes
also
out.
outed in a political ad.
That's crazy.
She's outed by Finn and then in a political ad.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's maybe one of my like favorite, not just the mashup, but like the whole like surrounding the Someone Like You and Rumor Has It. So good. Peak television.
They break up but then get back together in the final season, or is there the same drama that do they have the same kind of drama that Klain has?
It's not the exact same.
The thing about the characters in Glee is that they're all somehow serial cheaters or something.
Oh,
it's like they're all cheating on each other, kind of with each other, but then also sometimes with other people who will be in there for like 10 episodes and then you never see them again.
Yeah, I feel like some of the camp of Glee is how things just happen and like the characters never really face any consequences. They just keep going.
That's kind of like, it's like anti-sitcom in some ways, is that where like each sitcom episode has to wrap up each episode with like a, you know, these classic like family sitcoms of like, oh, here's the nice little moral and everything's resolved. Just things don't get resolved ever.
Yeah, or like they'll get resolved, but it's like
the characters don't care.
The characters don't care, or like something crazy and unrelated happened and they're like, okay, well that solves that.
Oh.
Also, this is the second piece of media we've covered this season that involves hypnotism in some way, because part of the plot of the Hurt Locker episode is that Sue is hypnotizing Sam into sabotaging the Glee Club's performance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what else
Beast has
hypnotism? Oh my god, wait, that's gonna release late. That's releasing way after this episode.
I will bleep it.
Yeah. Is Sam a himbo?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
He is himbo patient 0.
We can trace it all back to him. Yeah, he's everything to me. Yeah, Sam is the football coach in part of that's season 6.
Yeah.
In part of season 6 because Beast is mysteriously gone and then he comes back and he's trans now.
Okay. Yeah. I saw you talking about that before we were recording and I was like, the character to me, like in the episodes we read as a butch lesbian, but is
because I think that Marie Jones is a butch lesbian in real life, but then they made her character straight for the drama.
And then trans cisgender.
Yeah, and then trans cisgender because Ryan Murphy was in his mind palace throwing darts at a board and being like, Coach Beast is gonna get hate crime this season. Oh no, wait, Coach Beast is straight. I know what I have to do.
Wait, the character gets hate crimed?
Not physically assaulted, but after coming back to school after the whole, like, the way that transition is portrayed in Glee is really strange because it's like Coach Beast is gone and then he comes back and he's like, my name is Sheldon now, I'm on testosterone, I just got top surgery. It's like, oh, that happened so fast. But after he comes back and he is out to the student body, his car is vandalized with a T-slur. And then there's like a trans choir that sings with him at the end of the episode.
At the end of the series, Sam is the new director of the Glee Club.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Because
cool.
Rachel goes on to win a Tony in I think it's like literally the year 2020, but then the Tonys didn't happen in 2020 and everyone was like, we dodged a bullet.
And Sue is Jeb's vice president.
That's the thing. I was like, I knew Sue ended up in like the executive executive branch of government. Wait, they decided that Jeb Bush
was Bush's president.
Please clap Jeb Bush.
Jeb exclamation point.
Because there's the sequence in Hurt Locker Part 2 where she's like remembering all the like hardship she's faced, and it was her like wanting Mitt Romney to win.
That was so camp.
Yeah.
Because then it's so they see her. You see her losing all of the. All these Republican nominees losing. And then it transitions into her losing out to big, like, famous roles.
Yeah, she wants to be a Pretty Woman. She doesn't get it. There's another one.
Sequence, iconic costumes that she's, like... And
she
the
wants
dramatic...
to be Scarface and she loses it to Al Pacino.
Yeah. That is the thing, is that, like, there kept being moments in these episodes that we watched where I had heard about one aspect of the episode and gone, oh yeah, that makes sense, that'll be camp. But then the whole episode is just like,
it's crazy,
beat after beat of like things that make my jaw drop.
Yeah, there has to be a quota that every episode at least 5 crazy things need to happen.
There are no filler
and at least one
Glee.
of them is some form of hate crime.
Yeah, because Kurt also gets hate crimed after they moved to New York.
Oh my god.
I feel like I'm not sure if like we want to wrap things up, but I do know that before we end this, we should list all the insane things that we can think of that happened on this show.
Please. I have a bunch of fun facts about Ryan Murphy, which I think are really interesting that I want to share. I don't know maybe I'll do that now, since saying all the insane stuff is a good way to wrap up. This is something that, reading the New Yorker profile on Ryan Murphy, before I was like, oh yeah, that's like the guy who like has all these shows and like is kind of like, he read to me as a little bit milquetoast, I guess. And now I know a lot about his upbringing, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy, it makes sense that he makes camp shows. When he was younger, he wanted to be the Pope. He was like, oh, I want to be like the hot, on top, and the Pope is, Pope's in charge, because he was raised Catholic. And so this quote was, he would wake up and say, how long can I go without committing any sin whatsoever? And quote, I would last like 3 hours. I couldn't wait to say something bitchy or eat something I wasn't supposed to or have impure thoughts about boys. So I quickly abandoned that.
That's every episode of Glee. That's what every episode of Glee feels like.
He Also, when he was younger, or quote, actually, when he was 12, he wanted to turn his bedroom into a red painted quote portal to hell. And when his parents vetoed
It's
that,
just the choir room.
Oh my god. Well, when his parents vetoed that, he instead made his room a tribute to Studio 54 with chocolate brown shag carpeting, matte olive colored walls, a mirrored ceiling, and a shrine to Grace Kelly.
Wow.
I mean, this man does know his like Hollywood history. The final bit of information that I found really interesting is that the first person to own the rights to the memoir that inspired Orange is the New Black, the Netflix show, was in fact Ryan Murphy. So there was a
connection to Smith.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a world where Orange is the New Black was a Ryan Murphy show.
I would have
A
liked
dark,
to
more
see that.
sinister world.
I'm also kind of reminded of that tweet that says something like Ryan Murphy thinks he's John Waters.
I was thinking about that in the entire
he's like half
prep.
right though. I feel like if the characters were slightly more freakish, they would fit into a John Waters movie.
And that's the thing, is I think he genuinely, like, he talks about John Waters as, like, you know, another, like, so in the kind of quote of, like, oh, he doesn't like camp, he was like, does John Waters want to make camp films? Like, that's how he's been labeled. Like, I think he really does respect John Waters' work. It's just that his stuff isn't quite filthy enough, I think.
Like, freakish enough. Like, with every episode of Glee, I'm like, this is crazy, but the characters could be a bit crazier, and maybe Ryan Murphy would be John Waters.
Yeah, but the full tweet is Sam Levinson thinks he's Ryan Murphy thinks he's John Waters thinks he's the Hamburglar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I feel like if Ryan Murphy thought he was the Hamburglar, things would have been a lot different.
Oh, that is the best. That is one of the best tweets of all time, because it is true.
Yeah.
Sam Levinson does think he's Ryan Murphy, and he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, there's just, like, Ryan Murphy's stuff is insane. Like, I've read some of the plot stories too of, like, the stuff that happens in, like, American Horror Story. And, like, American Horror Story, like, Asylum especially, is just like, what the fuck?
I have to send you my mutual's Twitter account so you can just go through the details of things that have happened on Nip Tuck.
But I think Nip Tuck might be, like, even more camp than some of his other stuff, because it was, like, his first stuff that didn't get popular. Because that's another thing that this, like, profile got into, is that he is obsessed about whether things succeed or not. He cares a lot about whether it's a flop or a hit. And that, to me, I think is the barrier to being camp, is that he wants to do well. He thinks that he's constantly making stuff. He's always making stuff and wants it to be a success. Like, those are his, you know, basically his words. But if you're camp, you're not making a story for anyone other than yourself.
Yeah. Or, like,
if you're
fellow freaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, one of the things that I kept thinking about when rewatching these episodes is how, to me, Glee is the most quote-unquote successful when it's not trying to be important. When it's, like, not trying to say something meaningful. When it just lets itself be crazy. That's when Glee is at its best, to me.
But at the same time, like, there's, in conversation to that, it's doing things that current TV can't in some way, because, like, we talked about Riverdale on the show, and we kind of came to the conclusion that Riverdale's not camp. It's too caught up in itself. But Glee, it came out at the right time, or it had the right writers, or something, that it just, like, it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard.
Yeah, like, it's not trying too hard, but it also, like, received a bunch of prestigious awards, it's fascinating to think of nowadays, since the like mainstream consensus of Glee was, this is so stupid.
Yeah, that is so fascinating that it did so well. But I think the metrics for, like, what was prestige comedy at the time has completely shifted now, because prestige comedy these days is literally just like, it's like Barry or The Bear, like the most stressful hour of, well, it's not, it's the most stressful episode of television you've ever seen, but because it's half hour, it's in the comedy slot. Like,
yeah, or it's either that or doing therapy via television, like Ted Lasso.
Yeah. Where are like the where's the comedy that is winning awards these days?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, none of it's like new, but Always Sunny is still getting good reception. But even then, it like, you know, it's been running. It's the longest running live action sitcom. Like,
yeah.
Also, Glee doesn't really qualify as a sitcom because it's an hour long.
Yeah.
Wait, but it was a comedy. It was nominated for
dramedy, but also like
was it nominated comedy?
It's nominated
I believe it was
specifically
nominated as a comedy.
Yeah,
but I feel like it was more so nominated for like the music.
Yeah, but like these award shows like don't recognize the category of dramedy. Everything's either a drama or a comedy.
Yeah, and they need to, because it's making me upset.
Yeah.
The more I think about The Bear and Barry being nominated as comedies, the more sad I get. Like
they're great shows, but yeah, they're not.
I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
There was this Keon tweet the other day that was like, you were watching Carmi lose his mind and you thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Do we want to go over the insane things that happened in the...
Please.
I have
a
list here from BuzzFeed and also just things I remember, and like rewatched the twerking. Mr. Shu twerking with the children to Blurred Lines.
It's Mr. Shu twerking with the children to Blurred Lines, but then he, after it, like gets reprimanded for it, and he's like, I didn't know that this song was about like date rape.
He
was
like,
I just thought it was about like he was singing it. He knows all the words, but he was like, I just thought it was about like getting silly with it.
I mean, that is such an of the era episode description. Oh my god, like that is so middle school. I remember the literally the discourse in real time in my school about twerking at dances and like people talking about Blurred Lines, like
in season 6 Dalton Academy, which is where Blaine originally studied and Kurt was there for a moment as well, it burns down.
Yeah, it burns down, and then it like kind of merges with McKinley, but like only a little bit. Like it's not the whole student body, it's just some of the warblers.
Okay. I don't think school districts work that way, but okay.
No, certainly not.
There's an early episode where Terry gives the kids these decongestants and they just get really high.
Yeah. I think about that constantly.
What is with the Glee students getting high, like off things that
and in one episode they're like fully alcoholics for one episode.
There's because I think the episode is called Blame It on the Alcohol. That's when Blaine is briefly bi-curious.
And Kurt does not believe in bisexuality.
Wait, Blaine isn't bi?
No.
Blaine is fully gay, but then there's this whole episode where
Is Darren Criss bi?
No,
Darren Criss is...
He's sweet!
I was about to say allegedly, and I was like, I can't say that.
I do not want to stereotype people, but that man
I understand.
is straight?
Yes.
I just said he's allegedly straight. I promise I understand.
Okay, well, Blaine bi-icon in my heart. He can be with Willow in characters who just forget that bisexuality exists and have to be one sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, if he like goes through an entire like journey in the episode where he like they play Spin the Bottle, and I think he kisses
while
like,
drunk.
Rachel specifically while drunk, and Kurt is like, haha, that was so silly, don't do it again. And Blaine was like, I don't know, I might like girls. And then at the end, he's like, no, I'm not.
And
So fair.
Speaking of Blaine, in early season 6, he does date Karofsky. Famously, his ex's bully and borderline assailant.
Yeah.
The puppet episode.
The puppet episode.
Which / gas leak episode where there's a gas leak in the choir room.
There's a gas leak in the choir room. Blaine sits in the corner near where the gas leak is, has a hallucination, and then one of his students is like, go sit in the back corner.
Wait, he's the teacher then?
No, he's not
the teacher. He's
an older
teacher.
Student.
Is he an older student? I
At
thought
that point, he's just like an older student about to graduate soon.
Okay. I thought that he had graduated, but was just hanging around like they all do.
Talked about the crack house. Brittany suddenly being a genius because her biological father is Stephen Hawking. And her mother is played by Jennifer Coolidge. That's camp.
Oh, that's so fun.
When Quinn got into a car accident and was in a wheelchair for a few episodes, and she and Artie sang "I'm Still Standing."
She gets into a car accident before Finn and Rachel are supposed to be teenage wed, because I think that they were about to graduate high school, and Finn was gonna go to the military, and Rachel was like, I want to get married to you right now. But they don't get married because Quinn is supposed to be her, one of her bridesmaids or her maid of honor, I don't remember, and she is texting while driving, and then she gets T-boned.
I've heard about that episode. It was
the shot it was where Quinn gets crashed on is kind of iconic.
Yeah.
It's like their anti-texting PSA, kind of.
Yeah, because it's also it's not so abrupt. It's pretty abrupt, but it's whenever you see a character distracted driving, it's something you're like, oh, okay, well, they're gonna get in a car accident. It's gonna be really bad.
And speaking of teenage weddings, this is the episode that everyone forgets, but it's always somewhere in the back of my mind where this one of the Christmas episodes is also about the 2012 Mayan apocalypse, and Brittany and Sam really believe in the 2012 Mayan apocalypse, so they get ceremoniously married in the high school because
Sheldon's
the world will end soon.
I got Mayan ordained online.
Mayan ordained. Oh.
I don't remember exactly what he says. I watched the scene earlier, but he was like, I could do a Mayan ceremony for you right now. And it feels really racist.
I just keep coming back to this idea that it's so camp to be of a specific era. Making a whole episode about the Mayan calendar ending is such because everyone I think immediately forgot about that after it was no longer kind of something that people were worried about, kind of. So it's did it come out around the time too? It came around Christmas time, I guess, so they're just might as well write in advance in case the world ends. We'll have this little episode dedicated to it.
In case the world ends, everyone can watch an episode about people preparing for the world ending.
Yeah.
And then that's the last thing that they see.
Imagine if the last thing you saw was the Sam and Brittany teenager wedding.
I'd be so mad.
There's the aforementioned Kitty gaslighting Marley into an eating disorder plotline. Sue marrying herself, and her wedding gown is a tracksuit. Yes, Sue marries herself in a
she wears a tracksuit dress.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Her mother and Becky are there.
Oh my god.
I don't remember who her mother is played by, but I remember that's a very famous actress.
Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
Oh. Jane Lynch and the camp of playing a character who's straight and into men while also being Jane Lynch in a tracksuit all the time.
Yeah, I think that's also part of the thing for Sheldon in the pre-transition seasons is like Ryan Murphy keeps getting people who are like, I don't want to say obviously lesbians, but like, you know, publicly lesbians, and try to present as such and getting them to play straight.
Yeah.
There's an entire season 5 episode, which season 5 is the weakest season, but it also has like a few iconic episodes. But one of them is because season 5 only takes place during one semester, but they have to do a Christmas episode. It's kind of like an alternate timeline, non-canon Christmas episode.
Oh.
And one of the plot lines in it, like basically the only plot line that I remember is Rachel, Kurt, and Santana get robbed. Like
because sorry, they do like a gig as like Santa's elves for at like a department store where, you know, kids come sit in Santa's lap, tell them what they want for Christmas, and they do a song and dance number, and then Santa's hot and they're like, oh my god, do you want to come back to our apartment? And he's like, okay. And then he pulls out helium and they all like huff helium and sing Christmas Christmas from Alvin and the Chipmunks. And then he robs them.
These characters need to stop like taking anything. They need it. They never take some form of substance from a stranger or a dentist or a or a school nurse who's not actually a school nurse. Like,
Glee is one of those pieces of media that like won't like strictly adhere to the rules of reality, and then people, when talking about, will be like, what were the writers on when they wrote this? But it feels like the writers could only make stuff happen if they put their characters on something.
Yeah, the writers weren't on something, but the characters were.
Yeah.
Do you think that they did? How did they get about it? Were they like, let's this character do a crazy thing, oh, we need to justify it? Or like...
Also, before I forget, because it somehow hasn't appeared in some of the lists I found, the Tina Blaine Vapo rape.
Yeah, so the group name for them is Blaine and Tina, and it's Blaine and Sam and Tina are kind of like, I almost said throuple. That's not the word for when three people are friends. A trio.
They should have been a throuple. They should have been.
They should have been a throuple. And Tina is like into both Sam and Blaine, despite knowing that Blaine is gay. Blaine is into Sam. Sam is kind of into Tina, but like not really, just on a superficial level. They're like barely friends. And Tina, like, Blaine is sick, and Tina tries to come on to him while rubbing Vapo Rub.
He's like
on his
passed
chest.
out.
Yeah.
And she like straddles him and puts Vapo Rub on his chest, and that incident from then on is referred to as Vapo Rape.
Mm-hmm.
Is Vapo Rub, is that something that like gets rid of, is it moisturizer, or is it one of those things that gets rid of your hair?
Congestion.
Oh.
It's like it has like menthol in it.
Okay. Yeah.
And like there's also an episode where Tina gets like hit and falls in a like fountain, and like then all of the characters switch places and are all dressed like each other and behave like each other. She gets
a concussion in like a wish fountain.
Tina seemed to be one of the really underutilized members of the club.
Yeah, and I love her. She's everything to me.
She's kind of everything and nothing. Yeah. She exists to serve plots and to do Vapo Rape. Yeah, that's it.
She could have been so much more.
The stutter that she has in the first season is completely fake.
Yeah, like
if you notice in that pilot episode, Saffron.
Oh yeah, wait, but it's within the canon. She's like faking it.
So yes, she writes. First of all, on the New Direction sign-up sheet, she writes Tina, and she I don't remember if this is revealed like before this, but I know that at least in the 2009 episode in the last season, it's like she wants to get close to Artie but doesn't know how, and she's like, "You're disabled. I'm gonna fake a disability.
Oh no!
So that we have something in common."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What? Wow.
Yeah.
Everything
and
is
also,
happening in this show.
I keep finding new lists and keep remembering new insane plot lines, let alone insane scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is Marley gets suspended from the Glee Club because she didn't want to wear something super revealing for a performance.
Yeah, there's I don't remember what the context of it is, but there's like there are Lady Gagas and there are Katy Perry's, and Shu puts all of the people who would want to be Katy Perry more in the Lady Gaga group and vice versa, and he wants to get Marley to wear like basically a bikini, and she's like, I'm not comfortable in that, so she wears like a Katy Perry costume with like the lollipops on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
but like she belongs to the Lady Gaga group, I think.
Yeah. So like everyone's in like, Sam's wearing like weird like wings and he's shirtless, and Artie has like the art pop makeup on, and she comes in with like the Katy Perry thing, and Will is so mad at her that she gets suspended for a week because she wouldn't be a team player and she wouldn't step outside her comfort zone, which is again wearing a bikini.
Oh my god.
Oh, also
I'm not gonna say
Sam
that
at one point, like in early Sam storylines, he is homeless and also a stripper and potentially underage stripper.
Yeah, he's like it's after he like leaves McKinley, because I think his family, like someone in his family got laid off and they had to move, and they're like, we need Sam back so that we can win whatever competition we're about to do, and they go to find him and he's a 17-year-old stripper, and the characters are like, you shouldn't be a stripper because being a stripper is bad, and not because doing sex work underage is bad.
Really insane to sex workers, like in season 4 or 5 where Rachel dates a sex worker, like when they find out like Finn
and they
fully
blackmail
beats him up.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's literally insane.
Yeah.
And these actors playing these characters were the role models doing anti-bullying PSAs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
they were doing tolerance.
A lot of the camp from this show is just kind of how horrible these characters are.
Yeah. I constantly think about the Born This Way performance where they're all wearing shirts where it's like things about them that they're like not proud of.
Oh my god.
But then they're also like tearing each other apart. It's like, okay, I'm getting mixed messages here.
Do we want to end with some of our the best / your favorite like performances in terms of like actual songs, since it is a Glee musical theater?
Like the episodes that we watched or overall?
Well, I'm going to speak from the episodes that we watched because that's the only reference that I have. Besides, as I said, the couple of songs that I've heard before. But they're all like, there was so the thing is that the only thing that is like, there was lots of good music and I was like, oh, that's a good singer, oh, that's a good singer, but I have to go with the Bohemian Rhapsody one because that's like, the imagery is so stuck in my head that there's just nothing like it. And as I was saying, like, it's just so like, to put the mesh the two together is so camp to me. It's just so like, you have this elegant performance of this ballad, and while this girl is screaming, and the way the song lyrics line up with her, her screaming, and then the what is it, you suck too, is like so funny. Of like, it's extreme, but it's also not as extreme as it could be. She's not allowed to swear on network television, so it's just, you suck. It's just so that, yeah, I was shown that at a young age, and I was not at all, I don't even remember I didn't even realize it was Jonathan Groff. That was another thing. I was like, wait, that's Jonathan Groff!
Yeah.
And he's got a great voice, but it's about how it all comes together that just makes it so stuck in my brain.
The performance that I'm thinking of right now is one that, Saffron, you haven't seen yet, but it's also from the quote-unquote non-canon Christmas episode where like the students of that season are trying to manipulate her into joining their like Christmas nativity scene whatever performance, and one of the ways they like try to get her to join is by staging this like what would be really offensive to her number about the Virgin Mary, and the song is Love Child. I forget who is the original singer, but they're like all in these really gaudy and cheap costumes, and Unique is playing the Virgin Mary and she's the trans character, and at one point in the song they like take out this baby doll thing and throw it around, and Kitty just looks horrified. And it's one of my favorite Glee numbers.
Yeah.
Also, anyone with Brittany in it.
So true. I already talked about Rumor Has It Someone Like You. I'm finding that I have a strong mashups bias, which I don't know what that says about me. But I often think about, even though like the context of it is weird, I think about the Thriller Heads Will Roll mashup a lot.
That's one's so good.
Because I think it's like genuinely really good, but it's also like
Wait, is that in the Michael Jackson episode where Blaine goes blind?
No,
that's in. It's like it's not a Halloween episode. It takes place like around Halloween. It's some conflict between the football team and the Glee Club. I don't remember exactly what happens, but like Karofsky has to like learn to be okay with like theatricality. I think it might have been that like Kurt was briefly on the football team and Karofsky was not okay with it because he was like, oh my god, gay people who like theater are around me and it's gonna kill me dead.
That sounds like a good mashup though.
It's really good.
Songs.
It's really good.
Legitimately, objectively one of the best songs, and like to me, the objectively best performance on Glee is Paradise by the Dashboard Light for Nationals. Like legitimately one of the great moments of television.
Yeah, and I guess like it is, as you said, Fabiola, it's like, oh my god, you know, every week each new episode delivered a concert to audiences. It is that is kind of amazing that you actually like, I don't know, just like the fact that in the end it's about music and that like
about performance.
Yeah. And like it's popular songs, and I know like people now, like since Glee's been off the air, it's always like, oh my god, imagine like the Hamilton Glee episode if it was still airing and stuff like that. But I don't know, music's fun. I think it is kind of interesting that they are like combining, you know, current pop hits with classics and just like putting their own spin on it. It's fun and interesting.
Jesse St. James was named Jesse so that Finn could sing Jesse's Girl. Like sometimes it is like so corny, but I do think that it's really fun how I feel like making excuses makes it seem like I don't like it when they do it, but they always like find ways to like bring in whatever is popular at the time and make it make some sort of sense, except for What Does the Fox Say?
Yeah, that one was thrown in there randomly and I'm thankful.
Yeah, because it is really funny. But
like they're not only singing that song, but they're also doing it with puppets. Like there's just so much.
That's Glee, man. It's so much.
Yeah, creating an environment that is so toxic.
Thank you so much again, B, for guesting. Is there anything you would like to plug, or what's your social media? Where can people find you? Give your spiel.
I'm on Twitter at Booth Skeletons. Booth like a diner, skeletons like what's in your body. I have a TTRPG out that I wrote with my partner called Along the Road to Everywhere. It's about road trips through the post-apocalypse. You can find that in my pin tweet and also on their
We'll put it in the show
itch.io.
notes
Yeah.
for sure.
Right. That's it.
Awesome.
This was so fun.
Yeah.
I love to talk about Glee. I love to make it everyone's problem.
It's Giving Camp, hosted by Saffron Hefta-Gaub
And Fabiola Liaño.
Our theme music is written by Harrison Lurie.
And the podcast is edited by Fabiola Liaño.
Follow us on Patreon. Support us on Patreon.
On Instagram, it's Giving Camp Pod. And on Twitter, it's Giving Camp Pod. Without it's. We're on Patreon at It's Giving Camp Pod, and shout out to our patron, Nicole Venito.